All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all the praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakak Wadash. Double honors and respect to the elders and to the apostles of Great Millstone. Peace and blessing to all Akim that are preaching and teaching this word with 100% truth and sincerity. And unto the men, women, and children that are listening and learning, and unto the Bayath Adawada, the elect house of David that is scattered abroad, I give you my utmost and sincere salutations. All right, so this lesson is about the mixed multitude that was amongst Israel in the desert during their exodus from Egypt. Okay? Now we're going to prove that mixed multitude, they were not Israelites. So we're going to start off with the book of Exodus, chapter 12. We're going to start at verse 37. So Exodus chapter 12, verse 37, it says, "And the children of Israel journeyed from Ramses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot that were men beside children." Now, I'm going to read this in the NLT. Exodus 12 and 37 in the NLT. "That night the people of Israel left Ramses and started for Succoth. There were about 600,000 men, plus all the women and children." So along with the men, the 600,000 men, were women and children, their families, their kids. Now it says here in verse 38, "And a mixed multitude went up also with them, and flocks and herds, and even very much cattle." So we're going to go into the blue letter here for the mixed multitude. Mixed goes back to the Hebrew word Arab. So it goes into a mixed company. So a mixed people, a mixed company. So a mixed company, which means people that are mingled amongst each other, different groups of people that are mingled amongst each other. So a mingled people. Now, when you go to multitude, meaning many, vast, great. Okay? So to continue, so, and I'm going to read that in the NLT. Exodus 12 and 38. "A rabble of non-Israelites went with them along with the great flocks and herds of livestock." So a rabble, when you look for the word rabble goes into a tumultuous crowd of vulgar, noisy people. Okay, so tumultuous crowd of vulgar, noisy people. All right, now how do we know that these were not Israelites that were with Israel? Going back to 37, it says, "And the children of Israel journeyed from Ramses and Succoth." This is verse 37. "And about 600,000 on foot that were men beside children." 37, okay, that was verse 37. Now we're going to go to the book of Numbers. Salakia, give me a second. Salakia on that. But now we're going to the book of Numbers, chapter 11, and we're going to go to verse 4. Okay? And it says, "And the mixed multitude that was among them fell a lusting. And the children of Israel also wept again and said, Who shall give us flesh to eat?" So when you go here to the mixed multitude, it goes to the Hebrew word
Strong's H 628. Asaph Suf. Asaph Suf.
asapsap, which is a collection, a rabble, a promiscuous assemblage of people. So promiscuous. Promiscuous. And promiscuous of people or things mingled confusedly or indiscriminately, consisting of parts or individuals grouped together without order, consisting of a disorderly mix. Okay. Now when you go to the Hebrew Chaldee lexicon, this mixed multitude goes into a mixed crowd scraped together of men of all kinds who added themselves to the Israelites. So right there, man. I know it's small to see, but that's in Numbers 11:4 in the Chaldee lexicon. So that right there shows that these people that were with Israel in the desert after they left Egypt, the Exodus, those were not Israelites. Those were heathens. Now you're wondering what happened to those heathens? But let's go back to verse 4 where it says, Numbers 11:4, and the mixed multitude that was among them fell a-lusting. And the children of Israel also wept again and said, who shall give us flesh to eat? Now when you look at the word lusting, it goes back to the word avah or avwa, which means a desire, to crave, to long for, to be greedy, or to prefer. Okay? Now, read this in the NLT. Then the foreign rabble who were traveling with the Israelites began to crave the good things of Egypt, and the people of Israel also began to complain. Oh, for some meat, they exclaimed. Now, I'm going to keep reading down. It says in verse 5, we remember the fish which we did eat in Egypt freely, the cucumbers and the melons and the leeks and the onions and the garlic, but now our soul is dried away. There is nothing at all beside the manna before our eyes. And the manna is the coriander seeds. Verse 7, and the manna was as coriander seed, and the color thereof was as the color of bdellium. And the people went about and gathered it and ground it in the mills, or beat it in the mortar, and baked it in pans and made cakes of it. And the taste of it was as the taste of fresh oil. Now, the people still complained. Now, when you go down to verse, I'm going to jump down to get to the point. Now it says here, Numbers 11:31. And there went forth a wind of the Lord Yahweh, and brought quails from the sea, which are birds, and let them fall by the camp, as it were a day's journey on the side, and as it were a day's journey on the other side. Round about the camp was and as it were 2 cubits high upon the face of the earth. Verse 32. And the people stood up all that day and all that night and all the next day, and they gathered the quails. He that gathered least gathered 10 homers. And they spread them all abroad for themselves round about the camp. So, reading that in the NLT, it'll say, verse 31 in the NLT, it says, now the Lord sent a wind that brought quail from the sea, and let them fall all around the camp. For miles in every direction there were quail flying about 3 feet above the ground. 32, so the people went out and caught quail all the day and throughout the night. And all the next day too. No one gathered less than 50 bushels. They spread the quail all around the camp to dry. In verse 33 in the KJV, and it says, and while the flesh was yet between their teeth, ere it was chewed, the wrath of the Lord Yahweh was kindled against the people, and the Lord Yahweh smote the people with a very great plague. Okay. And he called the name of that place Kibroth Tava, because there they buried the people that lusted. Now I'm going to read that starting at verse 33 in the NLT. But while they were gorging themselves on the meat, while it was still in their mouths, the anger of the Lord Yahweh blazed against the people, and he struck them with severe plague. 34, so that place was called Kibroth Tava, which means graves of gluttony. So they were eating too much. They were getting to be, taking too much. Okay? Because there they buried the people who had craved meat from Egypt. Okay? Talking about, and who are those that were lusting? Let's go back to Numbers 11 and 4. And the mixed verse 4. And the mixed multitude that was among them fell a lusting, and the children of Israel also wept again and said, who shall give us flesh to eat? So the constant complaining and whining because they missed the dainty things and the easy good life in Egypt, eating all the good food, the water. So the Lord punished that mixed multitude of heathens along with Israel. Okay? Now, let's get Slovakia. Let me get now let's see, going back to Exodus chapter 12. Exodus chapter 12. Now, okay, so Exodus chapter 12, I'm going to start at verse 37 again. It says, and the children of Israel journeyed from Ramses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot that were men beside children. 38, and a mixed multitude went up also with them, and flocks and herds, and even very much cattle. Now, I'm gonna go down to drop down to go to verse 40 here, and it says, now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years. 41, and it came to pass at the end of the 430 years, even the selfsame day it came to pass, that all the host of the Lord Yahweh went out from the land of Egypt. Verse 42, it is a night to be much observed unto the Lord Yahweh for bringing them out of the land of Egypt. This is that night of the Lord Yahweh to be observed of all the children of Israel in their generations. So reading that in the NLT, verse 42, on this night the Lord Yahweh kept his promise to bring his people out of the land of Egypt. So this night belongs to him, and it must be commemorated every year by all the Israelites from generation to generation. In verse 43 in the KJV, it says, and the Lord Yahweh said unto Moses and Aaron, this is the ordinance of the Passover. There shall no stranger eat thereof. Okay, and when you look at this word stranger, stranger goes to Nachar. It goes to a foreigner of heathendom. Foreigner or abstractly heathendom. Someone of the heathens. So the heathens cannot partake in the holy days. They cannot partake in the Passover. So, reading that part in the NLT, verse 43, Exodus 12 and 43 in the NLT, then the Lord Yahweh said to Moses and Aaron, these are the instructions for the festival of Passover. No outsiders are allowed to eat the Passover meal. Okay? But it says here in verse 44, but every man's servant that is bought for money, when thou hast circumcised him, then shall he eat thereof. Okay? And those that are circumcised is talking about Israel. Okay? Now let's see here. Now, when you go into that word servant, it goes to the word abad. Servant, worshippers of the power, a servant of Israel. But when you go to the lexicon, it says a servant who amongst the Hebrews was commonly a slave. Okay? So, if an Israelite is not circumcised, they cannot partake. But if they are circumcised, they can partake in the Passover meal. And here in verse 45, it says, a foreigner and hired servant shall not eat thereof. So let's go there. This goes back to the word tashab. And when you look at the lexicon, it says, a stranger, an immigrant, sojourning in a strange country where he is not naturalized. So basically, a passerby, someone who's passing through. When you look up the word immigrant, when it's spelled Emigrant, it says one who quits a country or region to settle in another. Okay? So these are not Israelites. These are heathens that are not allowed to partake in the Passover or any of the high holy days. But this is specifically talking about the Passover. Okay, now read that in the NLT, verse 45, Exodus 12 and 45 in the NLT. Temporary residents and hired servants may not eat it. Okay, now, reading down to verse 47. Actually, I'll start from verse 46. It says, in one house shall it be eaten. Thou shalt not carry forth aught of the flesh abroad out of the house, neither shall ye break a bone thereof. All the congregation of Israel shall keep it. So all of Israel must celebrate the Passover festival. Okay? In verse 46 in the NLT, it says, each Passover lamb must be eaten in one house. Do not carry any of its meat outside, and do not break any of its bones. So wherever that lamb is, whichever house it's in, that's what the lamb is going to be eaten. Now, verse 48, and when a stranger shall sojourn with thee, and will keep the Passover to the Lord Yahweh, let all his males be circumcised, and then let him come near and keep it. And he shall be as one that is born in the land, for no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof. Let's read that in the NLT. If there are foreigners living among you who want to celebrate the Lord's Passover, Let all their males be circumcised. Only then may they celebrate the Passover with you like any native-born Israelite. But no uncircumcised male may ever eat the Passover meal. So when you go to the word stranger, it goes to the word gar. It goes into a sojourner or stranger, a person living out of his own country. So a person living out of his own country, which means he's not in his native land. He's living elsewhere. And remember, the Bible says that Israel is scattered. So there's a lot of Israelites that are not living in their native land. Okay? So there you go. That's the distinction between that mixed multitude and the Israelites, and the heathens, they can't partake in the holy days. They can't partake in the Passover. And I'm gonna do let's see, I'm gonna keep going down here. Verse 49, one law shall be to him that is homeborn, and unto the stranger that is sojourned among you. So verse 49 in the NLT is saying this instruction applies to everyone, whether a native-born Israelite or a foreigner, an Israelite that's not living in his native land, living among you. Verse 50, thus did all the children of Israel as the Lord Yahweh commanded Moses and Aaron, so did they. 51, and it came to pass that self-same day that the Lord Yahweh did bring the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt by their armies. Okay, so Lord willing that this was edifying unto the body and to the sincere believers. Okay, so with that being said, now that you know the difference between that mixed multitude and Israel, we now know that the Lord Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai only made a covenant, only cares for Israel, and he made the covenant with Israel. Okay, so that's why it says here in Exodus 19, okay, so I'm going to start from verse 1. It says, in the 3rd month, when the children of Israel were gone forth out of the land of Egypt, the same day came they into the wilderness of Sinai. Verse 2, they were departed from Rephidim, and were come to the desert of Sinai, and had pitched in the wilderness, and there Israel camped before the mount. Verse 3, and Moses went up into the power, and Yahweh called unto him out of the mountain, saying, thus shalt thou say to the house of Jacob, and tell the children of Israel. Verse 4, ye have seen what I did unto the Egyptians, and how I bare you on eagle's wings, and brought you unto myself. Verse 5, now therefore, if ye will obey my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. In verse 6, ye shall be a kingdom of priests, and an holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. So, if you will obey my voice indeed and keep my covenant, ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me. So, again, the covenant, the law, statute, commandments, the high holy days, they are only for Israel. They're not for the other nations. The other nations outside of Israel, this isn't for them. Okay? So, with that being said, I'm going to make a part hopefully that clarified some things. All right, so with that being said, I'd like to give all the honor, glory, and praise unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakak, Wadash. Double honors and respect to the elders and to the apostles of Great Millstone. Peace and blessing to all Akim that are preaching and teaching this word with 100% truth and sincerity. And unto the men, women, and children that are listening and learning, and unto the Bayatha Davadah, the elect house of David that is scattered abroad. I give you my utmost and sincere salutations. See you in the next lesson, Lord willing. Kwam Yasharallah, Wa Abad Babal, Shalawam, Barakatam.